Amidst a backdrop of economic turbulence and strained relations with neighbouring India, Pakistan stands firm in its commitment to advancing its nuclear program, as revealed by a senior US intelligence official in a recent congressional testimony. In fact, Lieutenant General Jeffrey Kruse, the director of the Defence Intelligence Agency, he highlighted that Pakistan's resilience in pursuing nuclear modernisation, these efforts were happening despite them facing significant financial challenges on ground zero. Now, for further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Mohammed Ghazali, who joins us with a quick roundup of what has been happening. Ghazali, bring us up to date. We've heard lots of revelations by a top US intel official.
Yeah, so what he has stressed is that Pakistan's defense policy is strongly influenced by its contentious relationship with India. And despite the economic turmoil, as highlighted in that report, Pakistan continued its nuclear modernization efforts in the past year. And Mr. Kruse, who was informing or sharing this report, also informed the lawmakers there that Pakistan's efforts to seek international support, including from the UN Security Council, in resolving its dispute with India over Kashmir. But despite all this, the focus was that how, despite the economic turmoil, Pakistan has continued its nuclear modernization efforts. And he also shared certain data, like as of January 2023, Pakistan is reportedly in possession of 170 nuclear warheads, as indicated by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. And facing financial challenges, Pakistan is also relying on support from allies such as China and Saudi Arabia to overcome its economic difficulties. And additionally, Pakistan's finance minister, Mohammed, the finance minister of Pakistan, is currently in Washington to negotiate a new loan package with the International Monetary Fund. So this, and he also went on to quote about what kind of terrorist threat Pakistan has been facing, what kind of economic challenges Pakistan is facing. But despite both these challenges, the neighboring country continues with its nuclear policy, or its focus has remained on the nuclear policy all this while.
Right, thank you so much, Ghazali, for that update on the broadcast. We also have with us Calvin Dark, Global Affairs Analyst. Thank you so much, Mr. Dark, for making time for us and joining us live on NDTV. We've just heard Mohammed Ghazali's report as well. You know, poor policy choices combined with a series of shocks. There's COVID-19, the devastating floods that Pakistan saw, adverse global conditions. These have caused growth to slow, poverty to increase, and brought Pakistan to the brink of debt default. And yet now, intel from the US claims that Pakistan sustained its nuclear program despite all this turmoil, as its contentious relationship with India continues to drive its defense policy. How exactly do you evaluate this decision?
Well, yes, good to be here. I think the message from the United States in this testimony before Congress was pretty clear, that Pakistan has judged it the most, judged that continuing and strengthening its nuclear program is a priority, that it's existential to their security, so much so that it has continued despite the economic challenges that you talked about. And it just goes to underscore what they perceive the threat and threats are for why they need to continue to pursue this program for deterrence. So I think that's the message that we're seeing in this testimony about Pakistan's motives. I also think that one of the other things that was noted in the testimony that's noteworthy is the connection with China, because obviously the United States is paying close attention to that, because as China becomes a partner, or an increasing partner with Pakistan, particularly with arms and weapons, that's going to be something on the United States radar as well.
Right, Mr. Dark, also Islamabad modernizing its nuclear arsenal and improving the security of its nuclear materials. It's also successfully tested a medium-range ballistic missile, as per a report I read. Now, as nations continue their efforts to modernize their military capabilities, the evolving nuclear landscape undoubtedly has far-reaching implications for global security, right?
Yes, and that's why there's always got to be this balance between security, because as we talked about the economic dimension of continuing to pursue the nuclear program, without security, there is no economic prosperity. So Pakistan realizes that if that security apparatus is not secure, secure for their future, prosperity and economic development won't matter. But now that also underscores the fact that these programs have to be managed. And that's not an easy thing to do, because we have to be able to allow countries to provide for their own defense, to provide for their own deterrence. But like you said, in a world where nuclear arms are increasingly a part of nations' defense strategies, we have to make sure that that arms race doesn't put everybody in danger. And I think that's why this was important to the United States. And the United States is trying to consider what can its role be to allow countries to develop their defenses, but without upsetting the balance of power, particularly in the region and particularly as it relates to our allies.
Right. Mr. Dak, isn't it baffling that on one hand, cash-strapped Pakistan, as we've touched upon, is banking on close allies like China and Saudi Arabia for loans to actually tide over their economic woes? Pakistan's finance minister, as we speak, has actually touched down in Washington to discuss a new loan package with the IMF. Doesn't it make you question Pakistan's priority and their modus operandi?
Well, it doesn't make me question their priority, because I think it's clear their priority is that their defense is the priority, even, like I said, through the economic times. But I think that one of the things that Pakistan, I'm sure, is aware of, and that the world is watching, I know the United States is watching, is that these increased partnerships, particularly with China, are not without strings. Each of these partnerships, be it with China or with Saudi Arabia, comes with their own strings attached. And what's interesting is that this may be beneficial, for example, on the weapons cooperation, but how does that affect Pakistan's potential relations with the United States or with other countries? And so I think the message the United States is going to try to send is that Pakistan needs to be aware that the strings with some of these relationships might hinder future partnerships, potentially with the United States and others.
Right. As we wrap, I must also highlight that in Pakistan, human development outcomes remained at levels we see in much poorer countries, while per capita income growth has been declining in the face of low productivity and high fertility. But thank you so much, Calvin Dark, for making time for us and joining us live on NDTV for deeper insight into the matter.